Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are in the world. I just know that I am in Washington, D.C., and it's about 4:20 p.m. my time. And I am here to speak with an amazing Anupama Garg from New Delhi, India. And she has some interesting things to tell us about her life, her work, and her passions. And we will get to know her. But I want to remind people before we begin this inter, this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, Rehan Allahwal's World of Connection, and it's one conversation at a time that by talking to each other, we begin to become friends, and all that craziness happening in the world goes away. Anupama, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Carla. And to your audience,
Talk with you.
I will introduce myself. My name is Anupama. I am based in New Delhi, India, and by profession, I am a researcher and a content strategist. I write for businesses. I write for nonprofits, and I am passionate about writing poetry, singing, meeting new people, and I am passionate about experimenting with life. And today, Carla has me all at her mercy, and she's going to ask me questions, and I'm going to answer them for you.
And I'm okay to it. Are we friends on Facebook? Yeah, we are friends.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Anupama, where were you born?
I was born in the state of Rajasthan in India, and there's a city called Ajmer. That's where I was born. That's where I was raised. I stayed there for 22 years, and then I moved to Delhi. I have been in Delhi for almost 13 odd years now.
Very nice. And what have you been doing in Delhi?
So most of my time in Delhi has been around work, job. I've changed a lot of jobs. I did not study in Delhi. I wanted to, but I think life has its own way of putting things on your table, and work became priority. So mostly it's been work in Delhi.
What kind of work have you been doing?
I started with a call center. I started with taking calls for a banking process and speaking to customers in the UK and the US. Then I changed a few jobs. I worked in the insurance sector, in the customer service teams. Then I moved on to working with newer businesses. I sort of worked with a few startups. I did a bit of freelancing, and now I work with a research foundation. I work with a think tank now.
Wonderful. What kind of research are you doing?
So the current organization that I work with, they are into business consultancy, and they advise corporates and businesses around growth, strategy, business development, people processes. So I sort of do academic research for them. I look at the university syllabi, curricula, and I sort of also interact with professors around the globe for them and help them put things together.
And I'm sorry, I was kind of distracted because I was reposting this. What kind of research did you say you do? Can you elaborate?
Primarily business and leadership research, Carla. It's centered around business growth, sales strategy, marketing, managing people. It's also at times, businesses will come to us looking for innovative ideas and to help them set their design thinking teams, their innovation teams. So we do all of that range of work with the businesses, and I research for all of that.
Now, a little girl told me that you are a singer. Do you do that professionally, or tell me about your singing, please?
So when I was a child, when I was 3 years old, my father sent me for training in classical music, and I learned till I was 16, which is almost 13 years. I have performed publicly, but I'm not a professional singer. I do not do it for a profession or for livelihood, but I do perform publicly.
Where do you perform?
So most of my performances have happened before I moved to Delhi. Now I perform in Delhi. I've performed very rarely. At the same time, on my Facebook, I do it every night. There's a nightly show that I do, and I end up singing Bollywood songs, the Indian film industry songs. I usually sing 2 or 3 songs every night, and friends and people keep giving me requests, and I keep performing to them.
Oh, for me?
I can sing for you, of course, yes.
I don't know much about, well, I know about bhajans, but I don't know much about secular Indian songs. So, what would you suggest?
I can sing a song for love, compassion, friendship. If that,
Oh, yes,
yeah,
that makes sense.
okay. So I'll sing 2 lines for you then.
You could sing more than 2 lines.
Or you're gonna make me sing a song, is it?
I told you I know you could sing a song.
I will sing a song for you. Okay, so this song is a fairly popular song. It's an old song, but it's fairly popular. And the broad meaning of the song is, let me take you to a world which is full of love and affection, and where people are not busy fighting each other, and where there's a lot of peace and joy. So that's the song that I'm going to sing for Kala, and also the people that are listening to you, also your friends around the world. आंचल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहां गम भी न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले एक ऐसे गगन के तले.
That's real. You have such a beautiful voice. Thank you for singing for me.
Thank you, Carla. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Now, we met on this past Friday at the Pakistani India meetup.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
So, so when Sameer invited me for the India-Pakistani meetup, I was intrigued, but I wasn't very sure because because of how the whole discourse around the world is when it comes to India and Pakistan. We suddenly become all about cricket and politics, and I didn't want it to be that. But then I also decided that because Sameer was the Indian facilitator, it would be, at least to say the least, it would be a pleasant experience. But when I did step into the meetup and when I met the people, it was way more than pleasant. It was very intriguing. It was very informative, and I loved every moment of it. It was way beyond what I'd imagined it to be possible.
What did you?
So, for instance, one of the key things that I realized was that people are just people, whether on this side of the border or that. And there are so many cultural similarities. There are so many, how do I put it? Like, what I realized was that we are all human beings. We are deeply connected despite the human boundaries that we set up. And then there were you, who was neither from India nor from Pakistan, but from another corner of the world. And I was like, wow. So there's so much connection happening, and there was such a depth in the connection. There was absolutely no, I did not see any inauthenticity. I saw a lot of honesty there in the conversation, and I think that was really profound for me.
Will you come back? So
Of
how
course, yes.
okay, how do you think we can most effectively create peace between India and Pakistan?
See, so the way I look at it, I think if there are sufficient people demanding for peace, if there's a critical mass, if there's a if there's a number which is significant enough, which asks for it and which demands it from the governments, things will start falling in place. Right now, what happens is that politicians feed us whatever they feed us, and we're gullible and we just accept it as a baggage, which is not ours to deal with. I think that's that what the Peace Foundation is doing, and what Rehan Bhai is doing, and what you and Samir are doing is is actually the first significant step that I have seen in my 36 years of life. You're bringing people together. You're bringing people one conversation at a time, and when this conversation reaches out on Facebook to say 500 viewers or 1,000 viewers, I am sure it leaves some mark in their minds, and then I'm sure it might be a little late, but at some point there's going to be sufficient number of people asking and demanding for peace. I think that's going to be the tipping point.
What do you think needs to be done to create peace?
What do I think needs to be?
Needs to be done most of, to most effectively create peace in the world?
I think the first thing that we need to start doing is allow people to travel across the border. Once we start traveling, once we start meeting each other in real lives across the border, that in itself will start leading to a lot of trust, because by default both the countries share the same amount of cultural hospitality. They have same roots. We have shared poets. We have shared uh, musicians. We have shared singers in our past, and I think it's a shame to sort of not be able to tap into that and not be able to actually exchange across the border. So I think opening up easy travel without having too much scrutiny and without too much security and without too much complications in the visa process would be a great step to begin with.
Now, I know this is going to sound weird, but during COVID-19, we have been crossing boundaries using technology.
Yeah.
Do you see a change in the world now that we're just making, we're making steps? I wouldn't have met you
Yeah.
necessarily if it hadn't been for technology.
I think this is one thing that has come out good. I mean, I'm not happy about the virus, of course, but I'm happy that people are locked in their homes and they want to connect with each other, and technology is at their service. And yeah, it's actually, like you said, I wouldn't probably have met you. I wouldn't have bothered to go around and find some Rehan across the border if Zoom calls weren't happening, or if Samir hadn't connected with me on Facebook. So so yeah, I'm happy about what the technology is doing to us in that sense.
How long have you known Samir?
Samir, I recently connected with him on Facebook. I know we have some shared common interest in the Landmark Forum, but I hadn't met him personally. So I think it happened because of the common friends that we have. And Facebook must have suggested that we should add up each other, and we did, and we had a conversation. And then just the Friday that we met, he said, we're hosting this event. Why don't you come and join? And I was like, okay. So I just sort of, I think that's the first time Sameer and I talked actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, despite the fact that we've exchanged a few notes on Facebook, that was the first time we talked.
And when did you meet Rehan?
That was the first day I met Rehan. I did not know Rehan before that.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah.
Because he introduced us before the meetup.
No, he introduced us immediately after the meetup because during the meetup I was busy adding him on Facebook and I was busy exchanging numbers with him and just as the meetup got over, he had this group and he made the introductions.
He does that all the time, but I didn't. I thought we had met before the meetup.
Nope.
Oh, then you sent me originally the friend request.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was connected. Huh. So, what do you, now that you've kind of gotten into the Rehan Allahwal circle, how, what are you thinking?
So Rehan Bhai and I have had a few interesting conversations around a lot of things actually. So we've had conversations around digital media, we've had conversations around marketing, we've had conversations around spirituality, sexuality, relationships, people, life, and I think one of the things that is very actively on my mind of late is how can we so out here in India, for instance, digital marketing is a big thing. People do it left, right, and center. And I see Rehan promoting that in the Pakistan. And I'm trying to see is there anything that I can do to contribute to the lives of people on that side of the border? Because the other interview that I had with one of his teammates was around women empowerment, and I realized that the issues are similar, but the way we cope with those issues in India and the way they cope with those issues in Pakistan is slightly different because of how the law is structured and because of how the culture is and how cities have sort of come out to be cosmopolitan in nature. So I think there's a lot of mutual value to be shared. And right now, what I'm exploring with him and the people from his circle, his friends, and everybody is how can we sort of leverage each other's expertise and see where it takes us together as a collective group of people.
When you say speaking about spirituality, are where are you on the fence of spirituality? Hindu, Muslim, Christian?
That's an interesting question. So I was raised as a Hindu. I am a practicing Hindu, but I also happen to be more of a humanist Hindu rather than a person who believes too much into ritual. So I do read the scriptures, but then I've also read the Quran and I've also read the Bible and I've also read the some portions of the Guru Granth Sahib. So I'm fairly secular in that sense. Um, I think any religion, whether it's the religion that I was born in or whether it's a religion that I practice, or even if I'm an atheist for that matter, I think the key is in knowing who you are and doing right by other people. If this is what you can sort of figure out, that's what spirituality means to me because that I think is the nature of myself. Like, that's the true nature of the self that we need to explore.
Would you say there are many similarities amongst people as there are as there is diversity?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your. statement rather.
Would you say, because the world is full of a lot of diversity, but also the world is full of a lot of universality. So would you say that there is as much similarities in the world as there is diversity in the world?
Yes, I would, because at a very, very fundamental level, all of us are hungry for love. All of us want to be loved. All of us want to love people back. All of us are, we have the same basic human needs. And I think all of us want to feel safe and secure, and that's what is at the core of all human beings. So, irrespective of the differences that we may have, irrespective of where we might live and what we might wear and what we might eat or how we might pray for that matter, I think, like you said, there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of stuff that we can learn from each other, and yet in the core of it, we are all similar, we are all one. We're all connected in a way or in some or the other way.
What do you feel us together?
What do I feel?
What do you feel connects us together in the world?
If I had to name an emotion, it would be love. If I had to name a scientific fact, it would be the fact that we are all one human species. And if I had to sort of get a little philosophical, I would say the very fact that we live and there's a lot of life beyond just the humans. So as a species, we've got to come together not just for ourselves, but also for the larger life and the larger being on the planet. That's I think what connects us. Like right now in this moment when you and I speak to each other, um, it's just pure simple affection of one human being towards another that makes us speak and that makes us want to connect with each other. Like everything else is just a paraphernalia, is what I'm trying to say.
Would you say that there is one thing that is the essence of our lives that we all share, whether we're in Pakistan, the United States, India, Europe?
If there's one thing that
we share together, that is the same for everyone. I'm actually going in a certain direction. What is one thing that doesn't change regardless of boundaries?
The desire to live and the desire to be free and the desire to be able to live the way we want to live rather than someone else telling us how to live.
Okay. I want to get you to a certain point and I'm trying hard.
Why don't you tell me, like, give me the keyword and I'll share what I think about it?
Okay, when we smile, do we share a language?
Oh, yes. So had we been talking face to face, had we been sitting in a coffee shop, along with the smile, you'd probably also get a very warm, cuddly hug. But now that we're sitting in two opposite corners of the world, we can still share the love through smile and not just through hugs.
Okay.
So the smile has, so what we are exchanging right now is love and affection.
Okay. Still working on something. What about the air we breathe? Does that change?
What about?
The air we breathe.
No, that doesn't change. That might just, actually the air is circulating all around the globe. So actually, yes, I'm breathing probably the same air that you were breathing like 12 hours ago, or maybe you'll breathe again after 12 hours. Yep. It's the same air, it's the same water, it's the same earth, and it's the same soil.
Does it change at all because you're in India and I am in the United States?
I don't really think it changes, Carla. I mean, sure, one could say that the texture of the soil is different and the pollution levels are different, but it's all connected at the end of it. It's all flowing from one place to the other. It's all being blown from one place to the other.
And if we didn't have the air to breathe, what would happen to our lives?
Oh, well, we probably wouldn't exist. Like we wouldn't be asking this question to each other. We just not be there.
So, what is that one important thing that we have in common?
That we breathe, that we are all alive.
Right? Not even that we're alive. When we breathe, what are we breathing in?
Air, oxygen.
So, do we need oxygen to survive in the world?
We need oxygen and we need more trees.
Why more trees?
A, because trees will give us oxygen, but B, more importantly, because trees will also ensure that a lot of life species that are lost could, or that are about to be lost, could be, sort of saved. And I mean, the way I look at it, environment has got way more than nature has way more to take care of than just humans. And if we call ourselves an intelligent species, it sort of becomes our responsibility to ensure that we facilitate that rather than hamper it. So trees is not just because of oxygen. Sure, that's like the easiest reason to give ourselves, but it's also because of the whole ecosystem in general.
So, what do we have that is essential to our lives for every life, whether we are black, brown, pink, purple, man, woman, boy, girl? What is that one essential thing we all need and we all share?
The nature, the I'm not sure what are we getting at.
What did you say that we all need in order to live? We all need to.
We all need to breathe, and we all need air, and
Right,
we all need clean and oxygen rich air, so to say.
right. So
Yeah.
you're going in the right direction now.
Okay.
If we all need air, is air essential to our lives?
Yeah.
So if it's essential and we share this, are we not all awake, all the same?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do people fight over borders?
Because people just refuse to realize that they can't breathe borders; they got to breathe air.
Are we really different as people would like to believe we are?
Nope.
No, not at all. And that was the point that I was trying to get to. Does
And
it?
that's such a beautiful point.
Why are you saying it's beautiful?
See, the minute you realize that all these boundaries and all these borders are just a notion that we have created, nature never did that. Nature just gave us the air and the air to breathe and the water to drink. And that minute you sense the beauty of the connection that is there in life between people. And I think that connection is what made me call it beautiful. If there's no connection, where's the beauty?
But there's a connection of all
Yeah,
of us together.
yeah.
And I wanted to get to that point with you, and I was having trouble. So, when you're talking about spirituality, where does spirituality begin?
It begins with the connection, and I think you've sort of helped me elaborate this quite clearly. That whether it's about the connection that we form through breathing the same air, or whether it's the connection that we form through technology, like you and I are doing right now, at the end of the day, we've all connected, and we're all humans, and we're the same people.
Okay, one thing the world needs to recognize. How can we help the world begin to recognize this?
Let's talk to more and more people, I guess.
How are we going to do? How are you going to do that?
I guess I've got to start talking with Rehan Bhai about interviewing more people.
It would be a good thing for you
Yeah.
to do, because as you begin to interview more people, you begin to realize that there's very little differences among the world. When you were growing up, did you feel that you were separate from people like in the United States, or you were separate from people in Pakistan?
Not really. When I was growing up, no, the borders weren't so strongly fed in our minds. But at the same time, um, I actually did have a pen pal in the US back in the school days.
Where else? What other connections did you make around the world when you were in school?
When I was in the school, this was the only connection. But once I moved to Delhi, I started chatting online a lot across platforms. And that's when I actually started connecting with people internationally, primarily in the US and some people in the UK. There were very few people at that point who I knew who were from Canada or Australia, because the time zones, I could stay up at night and US worked for me, and I could stay up at night and the UK worked for me, because UK it would be their early night, and US it would be their daytime. So that's how I started experimenting and talking with people. But I never reached a point where I would do video calls with them. I never reached a point where I would consider meeting them or think of maybe traveling to go and meet them. But I guess once the COVID situation settles down, now the kind of interactions that, for instance, you and I have had, or for instance, Rehan and I have had, I'm strongly tempted to start traveling and meeting people as well, not just with technology.
So, will you continue working as a researcher, or will you maybe go into another type of work?
See, I'll put it like this. So there's a dream that I'm sort of chasing. There's this one thing that I really want to do, and which is to write a set of books that would make a difference around the world, that would want uh, that would make people want to meet me, and then I can go and get hosted, and I can sort of share my wisdom. I can learn from their experiences, and move on to the next place a week later. So that nomadic lifestyle is probably what I'm going to choose for the next couple of years once the lockdowns get over.
Are you excited about that? Of looking at the world as a smaller place and not so big?
Yep, yep. It's less fearful. It's less scary. It's more it's more comforting, so to say. Knowing that there are people around the world who would know you, knowing that there'll be people who you would have made connections with before you travel to their countries, sort of makes it, I don't know, safer in a way.
Why do you say?
I think one of the things that we as Indian women deal a lot, especially during our childhood, is this whole notion of safety and this whole notion of not being able to trust people, and these calls and these interviews that I'm doing are sort of really helping me break my barrier around that big time. So I'm still like my parents would be still okay with me traveling within the country, but I'm not sure of their response to me traveling outside of the country. And while they will not come from a place of restriction, there'll always be this concern: oh, how do you want to travel as a solo woman? So I think once they know that there's someone out there watching for their daughter, the whole notion of it's a big bad world out there falls apart, and that's what I'm looking at this point. So to shatter that bias and to be able to display to them that the world is not out there to get me, and the world is a fine place. It's the same place as it is here.
Isn't that interesting to realize the world is not as big as we thought it was? I mean, it excites me, and I didn't realize it until recently. That when I started talking to all these people, because Rehan says talk to this person, talk to that person, that it gave me a way of looking at the world differently. I highly recommend doing the 500 mutual friend experiment, not necessarily for the computer, but doing it for your own growth.
Yeah,
You know, you
I
may consider.
I agree with that, and I think that's what I've realized in the last few days since the Friday. The last few interviews have actually, and now that you've said it in so many words, it actually hits home that probably it's time to take that next leap and start actually actively connecting with people.
I myself didn't realize the importance until I started doing it.
Hmm.
You know, I run that English show too, where I speak English with people and a lot of Pakistanis, but it opened my way of life. I mean, now I talk to people in Africa, people in Myanmar, India. I've been, so I don't, Bangladesh, Thailand. I had a 9-year-old from Thailand there
Wow.
today. And it's exciting because, you know, what Thailand was just a word to me before. Now I know someone there. It became a real place.
Hmm. Yep. It's no longer on just the map or in the atlas. It's now a place where you have someone that you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what makes all this so exciting.
Hmm.
So I highly recommend Rehan's World of Connections, meeting them and talking to them, not
Yeah.
just adding names.
Hmm. I sort of I not sort of I actually agree with you. You're right. It's not about adding more videos or more interviews. It's more about making things and people real for yourself.
And it takes time and it takes a little effort, but
Yeah.
the effort is worth the time. I mean, when I talk to someone from Bali, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it at this time at night. I must be crazy. But then I think of it again and think, what an opportunity.
Yep. I'm actually glad because when you asked me if this would be too late for me, um, I realized that even if it was, the very fact that you were making an effort. So it isn't late for me because I'm a late sleeper. But even if it were late for me, the very fact that you're making an effort to connect the minute you're free meant something to me, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be worth it. I'm going to stay up.
Thank you. I hope it. Do you have any words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience before we hang up this?
Yes, please let us all do more interviews. Let us all start getting connected, and it's high time we do that.
Okay, I don't want you to go anywhere. I'll talk to you. We're about to go off air, but you
Sure.
stay for a moment. And I want to thank those who watched and those who listened, and of course, Anupama Garg for speaking with me because it was wonderful. It's the growth of ourselves into the world that maybe we didn't see before this conversation happened. And I want to remind you that this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which promotes peace one conversation at a time. And with that, we're going to wave goodbye. Alabama, wave goodbye. And we will see you later. I think I may have another interview later tonight. Have a good
Sure.
day, peeps.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you for having me.
Thank you
Bye.
for talking to me again.